I'd like to call to order this Tuesday, April 5th, 2022 school board meeting. Please stand and join us with the traditional pledge. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread. Give us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. Lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, power, glory forever. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. One day I'm going to roll out of this chair. You guys just watch. All right. So, Mr. Superintendent, we are going to move agenda item number 2, recognitions, to number 3, presentations B, with Clewiston Middle School. So when Clewiston does their presentation, we'll also recognize Ms. Mendez. So at this time, Mr. Superintendent, do you have any presentations?
Yes, the first presentation that I have for you this evening is from the Florida Forest Service Association. We were very blessed in Hendry County to have several beautiful forests that make up some of the beautiful green spaces that we have, lots of wildlife and everything from ponds to lakes to camping, hunting, and all types of things that take place on them. They charge fees for residents or non-residents of Hendry County that want to go there, and then they give us 15% of those fees. There was a gentleman from Florida Forest Service scheduled to be here with us tonight, but unfortunately his spouse got into a wreck and he had to go attend to that. But he did send a very nice letter from Commissioner Nikki Freed, Commissioner of Agriculture, along with a check for our portion of the funds that they collect to go towards education. So we're very appreciative to the Florida Forest Association for what they do and for the green spaces we have in Hendry. If any of you have never been, I would encourage you to go and down to south part of Hendry County and check them out. They're absolutely gorgeous. Okay.
Do we have anyone here?
No, you could stay.
All right, thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Do we have any more presentations?
The next presentation this evening is going to be from Clewiston Middle School. Clewiston Middle School is one of the absolutely phenomenal schools that we have here in Hendry County. They have some great staff that's here with us tonight and some absolutely awesome students, and that's what it's about, is these awesome students that they have brought. In order to facilitate the beginning and all of the discussion, really, our super rock star principal, Ms. Tina Kelly, is going to take the lead from here.
Thank you, Superintendent, and everyone. It's an honor to be here tonight, and so I just want, if you're from Clewiston Middle School, would you just please stand up? Just want to make it real uncomfortable. This is our awesome team, and we are so proud of every single one of you guys. So thank you guys for being here tonight. All right. So I just want to talk about, we're kind of going to look at year at a glance. I know I'm on a time crunch tonight, but I'm so proud of our team and our students, and I just want to kind of share with you, take you on a little journey that we've been on this year. All right? So here we go. So first of all, we did it. For several years, since 2018, we were the D school, right? We were the school that was not being very successful. And so through one of the most difficult years probably in the history of education, and through an incredible team, we were able to move from a D up to a C+, technically a C++. How about that? So we were less than a percentage point away from a B. And so I just can't tell you enough how incredible our CMS team has been. Our teachers work harder than any teachers that I see and know. And in the midst of, just a lot of unstableness, our teachers have shown up day in, day out, gone above and beyond anything and everything that was expected of them. And so we are very, very proud of them. And I also just want to acknowledge our district leadership as well. Because we've had an incredible district leadership team that has stood right along with us. Everybody in this room, I've made several phone calls. They've come and sat in my office across from me and said, okay, look, you can do this. Let's move it. Let's go to this. And so I'm just thankful for our entire district and the support that they've had for our school, because it took a lot of teamwork to get where we were. So I just want to start out by saying that. So we're very proud of that. So our mission from the get-go has been to just engage and empower, educate every student, every day, in every classroom. And so it goes along with our all in, all the time. And that's been our mission since 2020. Like we just said, look, this is it. We've got to be able to sustain the growth in the direction that we're headed in. And so our school improvement plan, we had 4 main areas of focus. And one of them is academic progress for all of our students through standard aligned instructions. We believe we started from day one saying that all of our students, I don't care where you're from, where you grew up, who your parents are, what label, what little gingerbread man might be beside you in focus, that we believe that all of our students can achieve at high levels, and that is our full-on expectation every single day. The other thing that we focused on is our positive, just building our staff and building our students up and shifting the culture at our school. We have good kids at Clewiston Middle School, and I think kids are missing out if they skip us and go to other schools, right? So we have a great school, and once again, we have a great staff. Another focus that we have been working on is our professional learning communities. That we say that these are all of our kids. We're not, yes, we have departments, but our students belong to every single one of us. Everybody is responsible for our school growth. From the PE teachers to everybody. They're all responsible. And we also have been specifically targeting our English and language arts as well for our students. For so many years, we've settled that it's been okay if we only have 30% proficiency, 32% proficiency. And I've never really understood that, because that means that over 60% of our kids are not proficient in reading, and that has to change. So we've had a strong focus on that. All right, so our year at a glance, here's our opening day. We celebrated, thanks to Mr. Swindle, we were able to kind of secure an airport hangar, because we've said CMS is on the rise. We wanted to be out there with the planes rising higher and all that. So we started off at an airport hangar. We had a blast. We did not account for how hot it would be. So our all-day celebration turned into hurry up, let's go. We're sweating out here, we can't breathe, right? So, but we had a good time in the midst of that. And then we carried that over to our opening day for our kids. I read a book called Teach Like a Pirate, and the author of that book says, hey, your first day back should be a straight up, unbelievable celebration for your kids. And so we made it that way through incredible favor. I was able to connect with a company called Sky Pirates, and they came down for 100% free, got up at 2:30 in the morning, drove down to Clewiston Middle School, set up some hot air balloons, and so we definitely opened our day with a lot of excitement. And our kids were mesmerized. It was an unforgettable day for them. They were able to go inside the hot air balloons. And yeah, it was just a great day all the way around. And also on that day, we started houses this year, which was really, it goes to that culture goal that we have. And we found at some point last year, you'd be talking to our kids and we would say, well, who's the kid that you're talking about? And it would be like March, and they'll be like, I don't know, that boy that sits over there. It's like, wait, you've been in school with them all year. What do you mean you don't know your name, right? Their name. So we were out to really kind of deal with that we're family, that this is a family. And one of the ways that we did that was we incorporated houses. So we have 9 different houses at Clewiston Middle School, and we like to say that we're one house with many different rooms, but we're still just one house together. We also started the year with our FSA achievement celebrations. Our admin team is amazing for doing this for our PBIS. Our kids had we took our kids to the Harlem Civic Center. We had a pool party. We took some of our kids that did above and beyond on a trip to the movie. We just had all sorts of hey, you did it. We're going to pat you on the back a little bit. The young man in the middle is Sebastian Palatolon. I can't say his name right. He made a perfect score on Civic, so you can tell he's a bit proud there for that. So we were happy to celebrate that. Another thing that we've incorporated in the past 2 years have been clubs and sports at Clewiston Middle School. So you can see here some of our athletics. We have crochet club. Miss Pereira is in charge of that. I mean, our kids have learned to crochet everything, and they make a lot of money off of that as well. We have NJHS, we have SWAT. We started a debate team this year. One of our students has been in several competitions there. And of course, Mr. Burnett's here, and he reminded me that he's not a club, he is a class. And I said, you are correct, sir. So he is our project Lead the Way, and he is on a 2-minute time limit to kind of introduce some of our students to you. We just want to show you a little bit about what he does in his class. So I want to introduce Mr. Burnett to you.
Well, I'm Mr. Burnett. I have 2 minutes to do this, and it usually takes us about 35. So, I teach Project Lead the Way. I decided that last year we had Project Lead the Way. My kids went from a microbit, which is a microprocessor, which is in your computer, to what's called a bigger microbit, which is called a wombat. So, my students decided, we went from block coding to this little bitty thing to make it walk across the room, sing, and light up. And now they get to walk it, and they use Python, which controls all your computers. It's Python programming in which they're going to make that block move across the room. Good. So they're all autonomous. You program it and you let it go. So U.S. Sugar uses autonomous robots in their fields. All right? Right now we are going past the autonomous phase, and we're doing drones. So we have a concept of using drones for agriculture also. So my students actually get to program drones. Right now, what I want to do also is next year to go with what's called Vex Go and start them out smaller with robotics so that they can progress on with more critical thinking robotics. The end.
Mrs. Busen made a way for us also to present at the Rotary Club, so we appreciate that, Ms. Busen. And our kids got to go. I love it that they get to go and show what they're learning. And so, and our kids love Mr. Burnett's class. His class would be packed in every single period if we could. We need to get about 5 more of them. Nobody can replace him though. He's also one of the chief money makers at our campus. If you need a grant written, call him because he can write a grant. So,
all this is grant money.
Yeah, all this is grant
All
money.
this is my latest grant, which is called Vex Go. I got this for $3,000. This is a $3,000 grant. It gives me enough of these for 25 students.
Amazing. Yeah, absolutely. So good things happening in Project Lead the Way. So September we kicked off. One of our houses sponsored. We were happy to all be back together, and we did a school dance. If you've never gone to a middle school dance, hit me up. You need to experience it. It is something else. You have 7th and 8th graders falling in love, and you have 6th graders playing tag. You just never know what you're going to experience at a middle school dance. Another way that we reward our kids is we do Breakfast of Champions. Every 9 weeks, our students that are on the AB Honor Roll, we take them to McDonald's. McDonald's partners with them. They get breakfast. We give them donuts. Kids love food, right? Unfortunately, I don't know if that's good or bad, but hey, we reward them. So we do Breakfast of Champions. October, we did an open house night. We celebrated Unity Day. We have some pictures up here from our monthly PLCs, which, by the way, have been absolutely 100% a gift to our school, because that monthly time together, it has helped literally every single one of our school goals, from building culture, because some of our teachers never see each other, right? And man, once a month we get together, we get to sit across from the table from each other, we get to collaborate in all different directions. It's given us that extra planning time that we need. It's just been amazing. So thank you, those of you that made that happen, because I'm telling you, that has been a godsend for our school, and we truly appreciate it. November, I think this is November, yes, so we did SWAT Spirit Week. Kids love to dress up, especially because we have a pretty tight dress code. So any opportunity to not follow that dress code is actually amazing. All of our clubs sponsor some sort of community outreach or school outreach, and so Club Crochet did a canned food drive, and that's a picture of them delivering all the food to, forget the name of the place. It's at New Harvest Church. They do a monthly
Pantry. Compassion Avenue.
There you go, Compassion Avenue. I should know that because I go to church there. Sorry. All right. So we also did a turkey trot. Yeah, Compassion Avenue. So we did a turkey trot, which is kind of, our kids love this as well. Just a fun day. Kids pay to actually run. What? Who pays to run, right? But they do. And we give them medals. They win turkeys. Our turkeys were donated by, I think, Clyde Johnson. And so just lots of fun, lots of things that we did together. December, we did our house trees. We had great celebration at the end of that last week before we got out for December in our houses. This was one way. We did kind of a friendly competition. Social media was another way to draw some attention to our social media. People voted on which tree was the best, and House Axiotomos won. That's Miss Blair's house. Only because she crocheted an elephant. That's she had a little advantage. And we try monthly, and just, we know that our staff, every person is so valuable to us. We need everybody, and so we try to appreciate our people as much as we can, because they're invaluable, as we all know, right? And some of the toughest times we've gone through, these guys show up. I can't explain it enough. When everybody's saying, teachers are quitting and teachers are this, we've had people come in and day out and do the hard stuff. So we're so thankful. January, we kicked off with capturing kids' hearts. This also goes with one of our school goals. This was a tool because we're still trying to establish culture and relationship and keep driving that home. This was just a 2-day professional development that actually gave our teachers some tools of how to connect at the secondary level. Because if you guys have teenagers, you don't always get the same teenager every day. Sometimes they wake up really happy, and some days they're just like, don't talk to me. So these were like really awesome tools for us. We also did Literacy Week. We had our Clifton High School baseball team come in and read. We did a literacy night. We just had lots of cool things for our families and kids to be part of. That brought us to February. We did FFA Spirit Week. We did the Ultimate Tuesday, 2/22/22, where we did lots of tie-dye and all that kind of stuff. And we, of course, celebrated our Special Olympics. I see Miss Rodriguez is here. She helps make that happen. That's one of our favorite days, is our Special Olympics. And that brings us to where we are right now. And I'm hurrying, but we tell our teachers it's crunch time. So this is the time in the next 20 days where we are looking at our data. We are reaching out to those kids, because the data is not just number. It represents kids. It represents faces. It represents bodies in our classrooms. So real quickly, here's where we're standing right now. We ended the year in ELA growth last year with 44%, and we're at 58% based on our latest benchmark. Our bottom 25 is at 54, which is good. All right, and I just want to say some of that as well. I was really impressed with some of our ESE students and the kids that have the IEP. Some of those kids went from not being proficiency up to the proficiency level, which is amazing, because a couple of years ago we had zero growth in that area. So, and just like I said, we believe all those kids can learn. So we are proud of that. Here's our math data. We're looking good there too. We ended the year with 47, we're at 52, and 50 for our bottom 25, and 34% for that proficiency. We're still trying to kick up that proficiency. It bothers me. That's less than 50. But we're headed in the right direction, right? And so algebra, last year around this time we were at 0% proficiency, and we ended the year with 74, so that was good. So we're at 51% right now, so we're confident that we'll get up to that 81%. That is our goal. Science, last year we were like at 39%, and we ended at 47% for FSA, and we're currently at 53%. So that's good as well. So headed in the right direction there. Civics, we are at 60%. That looks a little bit lower than last year, but here's the big difference from that. Last year we tested less than 100 kids. 94. This year we're over 210 at 60%. And so that denominator has changed, and so definitely heading in the right direction there. And at this time, I want to ask Ms. Candida Mendez. So Ms. Mendez, I'm just going to read this little sheet here for you. So Ms. Mendez teaches 6th grade at Clifton Middle School, and she taught 8th grade last year. One thing about Ms. Mendez is she's ready to jump in and do whatever we ask her to do. And so this year, she was named a Florida Department of Education high impact teacher. And so she was honored by the Department of Education. So what that means is that Ms. Mendez is in the top 30% of the teachers in the state of Florida, according to Labelle. We're definitely proud to have her in Hendry County, but she's a keeper for Clifton Middle School too, we hope, right? So, so I'm going to turn over to Mr. Swindle. We have something for you.
And keep it along the same step. I actually have a certificate from the Florida Department of Education in Hendry County Schools that says to Ms. Candida Mendez, Florida Department of Education high impact teacher. We congratulate and thank you for your dedicated services to the Hendry County school system.
We 100% believe that, and so just thank you so much, Superintendent, thank you, School Board, for allowing us to have this time and show off our school event.
Thank you, Ms. Kelly. Ms. Kelly, when she started out, she started out by talking about how great and amazing the staff was. At the end of the day, it's about the students, and the results show that the students are learning and gaining exponentially. That is only because of the great staff and the teachers and the parents and the great leadership that Ms. Kelly has. She sold herself way short on that, but I don't want to fall victim of that. She's been an absolutely amazing leader that's put together a great team, the dream team, if you will, of folks that have just made an incredible difference at Clifton Middle School. I'm very proud of Clifton Middle School. I'm very proud of the students and the teachers that we have there, and I look forward to great things to come in the future. So thank you all very much. Sure. All right. Our next presentation is another one that I know that we'll really enjoy. Talking about people of passion like we just met. This is Miss Crystal Rodriguez, and she's going to share with us about the 7th Annual Special Olympics event that took place this year. So, Ms. Rodriguez.
We just are going to get connected real quick.
For the last 7 years, we have had a culminating event here in Hendry County. And so this year, last February, or this past February, as you saw on Miss Kelly's screen there. I appreciate that. Kudos there, thank you. We had our 7th annual culminating event. And let me just get this to go forward. And we do have some gifts for you, and I'll explain about these shirts after they get handed out by, this is Isabella. She is one of our, she has participated in Special Olympics since she was in pre-K. She's volunteered, she has been a play pal, and she has also been nominated next year to be an ambassador for Special Olympics. This is Isabella, and this is Gabby. Gabby has also been a volunteer and a play pal and a member of Special Olympics since pre-K. So, we are here to talk about Unified Champion Schools. So we in Hendry County are the first and only district in the county to be Unified Champion Schools in every school in our district. In the whole state. So we are the only and the first in the whole state of Florida to be a Unified Champion School. And you ask, what is a Unified Champion School? A Unified Champion School promotes in education as well as sportsmanship, and it is an inclusive program. So not only our ESE students benefit, our Gen Ed students benefit as well. Everything we've received from Special Olympics, including shirts, equipment, anything, transportation, anything to do with Special Olympics is paid for by Special Olympics. Nothing comes out of Hendry County's pocket. Okay? Unified Champions, like I said, it promotes inclusive sports, it promotes inclusive leadership programs, as well as whole school engagement. So the books you have in front of you are playbooks, they call them, for each level. So in those books, each school receives these books and they go to the liaison in each school for Special Olympics. These books help the team members promote team engagement. It gives lesson plans. It also gives them ideas and different things about supporting sportsmanship, adaptability to different sports, and it provides a schedule for when to do things and how to do things. So one of our programs that we do have for our littles is this is the Young Athlete Program. This is for our pre-K kiddos, and we do have Miss Kingman and Miss Ryan. They'll tell you their students' experience with Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Sabrina Rhymes. This is my first year teaching inclusion pre-K with Hendry County School District. I'm at LES. I have 17 students in my class right now. Half of them have IEPs, half of them are Gen Ed students. All of my students went to Special Olympics and they had so much fun. One of the things that I really liked about Special Olympics was that from a glance you couldn't tell which student had a special need and which student was typically developing. They all were just playing and they were all cooperating and they were all getting the support that they needed in order to be successful. Also, one of the other things I noticed was that the activities had a variety of abilities. So it didn't matter what an exceptionality was, a student had something that day that they could be successful at doing, which just radiated with them and they had so much fun. But they did say snow cones was their favorite.
And I'm Jennifer Kingman. I'm at LES as well. I started the inclusion pre-K when it first opened up. And so I don't remember if we did it the first year that you guys started it, but I have done it every year since. The last few years I've been VPK, and my kids still go to it. They enjoy it. There's fine motor, there's gross motor, it's everything. They don't see it as a Special Olympics. They get their little ribbon, they get their certificate, and it's an amazing day. We do a lot of the activities that we go to Special Olympics to do at school. We do outside centers. So it was just a bigger scale of what we were doing every week. But they enjoy it.
All right. So here are some pictures of that day. We do a tunnel. Labelle High School hosted this year. We alternate each side of the district every year, so everybody doesn't have to always travel. Like Wilson doesn't always have to travel, or Labelle doesn't. We're spread out. So this year was Labelle's side to host. So Labelle High School hosted the elementary level events and the middle high school level events. Labelle High School also provided volunteers, high school volunteers. We always make a tunnel when the kids come in, they're chanting, they're cheering. It is their day. Like, it is phenomenal. It's the Olympics to beat all Olympics. All right, so here's some more pictures of the events. All right, so our next level is Little Elites. So these are about 2nd grade through 5th grade kiddos. At the YAP level, you're doing some of those more prerequisite, maybe hitting off a tee, kicking a ball, prerequisites for sports. Little Elites, they move a little further into more gross motor skills, moving from those basic skills to actually starting into playing a game or the higher level of prerequisites. So Mr. Dipple's here to talk about that.
Hello, my name is Paul Dippold. I'm the ESE self-contained teacher at Westside Elementary. I have 15 students in my class who are very excited every year to participate in Special Olympics. Their favorite thing this year, I would say, would be the tunnel that we got to experience because they really enjoyed the students from LHS cheering for them as well as the other teachers and therapists there. This was my class's second time doing it since I've been here. We actually missed last year's event because our class was quarantined and it was hosted at Westside, so it was unfortunate that we missed it. Another opportunity that has come from being the site coordinator for Special Olympics is we got to run the Spread the Word to End the Word campaign, which is what the blue shirts are all. So at Westside, we kind of took up the cafeteria and created an inclusive event for all the students at the school to go. Some of the activities that they had ranged from kind of shredding or ripping up the R word. There was a video that displayed what our students kind of experienced throughout the day, their auditory sensory needs or visual sensory needs, as well as our wonderful therapy team participated in showing like equipment that will help our students. Overall, the students really enjoyed that day and kind of got a new mindset of what trials and tribulations their friends go through every day. And open their eyes to just seeing their friends in a new light and when they're in their class.
Thank you. All right, so here's some more pictures of that day. This right here is our therapy team. So everyone from therapy to ESE specialists to teachers to the school, they come out, they provide, our therapy team always has a sensory area that ranges from this gel table to shaving cream to water. It's a hot mess, but it is fun. It is a very fun hot mess. So our next level is our rising stars. So this is our middle and high school level. So at this level we do compete. So these kiddos come out and they're out to win. So we do a track and field event, and that's what we've done the past few years. We're trying to move towards working on basketball, soccer, and flag football as well. But they do win ribbons, and they want to know what was that time and who was first, who was second, who was third. So we do have, there's a running event. There's our winners for our wheelchair events. And like I said, all these activities, the competitions and the activities are all adapted to different levels. Everyone has something they can participate in. We move things around, change things up. We utilize a variety of different types of balls, different types of tees, different types of whatever we need to do to make it so that every child can participate, no matter if they do have disability or they do not have disability. Okay, so here's some more of our runners and winners. So they do a variety of races. They do walks. We do an adaptive walk. We do softball throw, tennis throw, wheelchair races, obstacle races. There are, and y'all should come out and try to run because I think they beat you.
I know they would.
So here's some more. We also have had the last few years wonderful sponsor Vargas Party Rentals. Donated both days. We had popcorn for all the kids, all you could eat. Snow cones, all you could eat. I know the teachers wanted to kill me after that, but everybody liked with either blue or red tongue, and they were loving it. And we also had bounce houses this year. So we had 3 huge bounce houses set up for both days, for the little kids elementary level and for the middle and high school level. free of charge. That was all free. That was all free, yes. The popcorn, snow cone, and the bounce houses were all given free of charge. Yes, for both full days. So here's some of our winners, and we do have podiums, and they want to be up on that podium, believe me. They are like raring to go to get that ribbon. It is a wonderful day. Everyone has a blast. So along with, like Mr. Dipple said, we do have our year-long activities that the teachers work on, these sports. It's building relationships between our Gen Ed and our ESE students. It is an inclusive model, and we do have, Special Olympics does promote, March is spread the word in the word, to not say the R word. So again, these shirts, the wristbands, posters that go along with that, all comes from Special Olympics. Nothing comes out of Hendry County's pocket. And it is a great program to run through the school to talk about inclusion. I've done this program several years at the elementary level. I presented it at CMS for the last couple of years, where I went into social studies classrooms. I sat down with a group of kids and we talked about what it was to be inclusive. How does it feel to be inclusive? What does it feel like to not be inclusive? You know, and I always tell the kids, okay, I'm gonna have a pizza party. So if you're wearing glasses, you get to come over here and have a pizza party with me. If you're not wearing glasses, you can't have a pizza party. I always get, well, that's not fair. So we talk about that. What's that like in the conversations that these kids talk about at the 3rd grade level, 4th grade level, or even 7th and 8th grade level is phenomenal. You know, these kids come up with wonderful conversation pieces, and it is a very engaging learning experience for everyone involved, teachers, students, and everyone. Okay, so we would like to thank Labelle High School and Miss Bass and her team for letting us, you know, take over their football field, their concession stand, and utilizing all of their, you know, custodial staff to help us clean up and different things, and their student helpers. Their student helpers were phenomenal. They came out, you know, I thought doing it in February would be a little cooler, but it was still a little bit hot, you know.
It's better than last year.
It's better than May. So, but the students were phenomenal. They hung out there with me all day long. We had students up in the PA system running the PA, running music for us. We had, you know, people manning the bounce houses, students manning all the, and as you walked around, we had representatives from Special Olympics come out, regional and countywide and district-wide come out, and they did say that they love coming to Hendry County because we put on the best culminating events they've ever seen. They love that we come together as a whole district, and that our students, our student volunteers, are some of the best. They walk around, they see them helping the kids, they are cheering everyone on. They couldn't stop saying how wonderful our students were. So we'd also like to thank our bus drivers. Without them, we couldn't get our kids where we need to get them. And, you know, our bus drivers are wonderful, and sometimes we forget about them, but they have a really hard job. You know, all those kids, you know, I'm sure they really love me on the way back, because usually, especially pre-K, they sleep all the way back. We wear them out very well. And we'd like to thank Special Olympics, obvious, because all the shirts that you saw the kids wearing, the Special Olympics shirts, all the equipment, and I mean equipment, every school gets equipment that is related to the activities they do. From balls to the flags that you pull for flag football, to the little vest you wear, to the relay batons. They get huge boxes. I mean, they're like this big. They get like 2 huge boxes full of materials, full of equipment, and it is all free. So the YAP equipment usually goes to the YAP teachers and VPK teachers, and they utilize that, you know, at recess when they do centers, and they have activities out there. The other equipment for little elites go to our self-contained and our PE coaches, because they get to use that in an inclusive model, and they use that equipment during PE, so everyone can benefit from it. The shirts that all the kids wear that day, all the water that we need for the day, Special Olympics bought for us. Each group gets their own set of shirts. They get ribbons, they get certificates, It's just a really fun day. So we thank Special Olympics for that. Vargas party rentals for all our bounce houses, snow cones, and popcorn that hypes the kids up, and then I send them back to their teachers because they love that. So next go, they always give us our volunteer lunches. They do about 30 to 40 lunches for each event for me for free. And I'm all about the free. If anyone, y'all all know me, Crystal's all about the free. Crystal will talk anybody into anything. So I'm all about the free. So Erwin always gives me lunches for all my volunteers, because I always say, if I feed them, they'll come, right? So I feed my volunteers. And then our wonderful ESE team there, I'm going to help Dr. Staley also in that, because she's supporting me through this. Miss Jordan and Miss White as well, they put up with me saying, hey, I want to do this. And like I say, if you know Crystal, I come up with crazy events. So the first year I did this, I said I wanted to do Special Olympics, and I kind of threw it together. We had about 50 kids that came that first event, and we had it. Amanda's shaking her head, and they're like, how are you going to do that? So we had it at the Zachary Rayna Park, right across from LES, and it went really well. So I was like, hey, I can do bigger. So this is where we are 7 years later, and next year will be bigger. So.
I'd like to say that everybody knows that everything we do is about the students and the kids, right? Everybody knows that's the whole focus point. And everything we do as a board and as superintendent, you know, we focus on driving academics. But let me tell you, this is a great program that is great for students on all levels and warms the heart to watch. So, and it wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for Ms. Rodriguez and her hard work. So thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. I know you pour a lot of yourself into this. It wouldn't be possible without you for sure. So thank you.
The two little girls belong to me.
I didn't recognize
They also pour a lot of sweat, tears, and if any of you know me, they are dragging out equipment, pulling equipment in. Izzy and Gabby both days, we were at LHS at 6:45 in the morning, and we didn't leave till about 5 o'clock that night, both days, setting up equipment, taking down equipment, and then making sure the bounce houses were put up and put down too, so.
That's a lot. Thank you.
I think at this time, we're going to take about a 5-minute break. So if you would like to leave at this time, if you were here for presentations, we understand. any citizen comments?
I have two citizen comments that have requested time to meet. The first one is from Mr. Carlos Avalo. Is Mr. Avalo present? Mr. Avalo, could you come forward, please? And I apologize if I mispronounced your name.
Avalo?
Avalo? Okay, I'm sorry about that.
Well, if you could state your name and the city that you reside in for the
Yes.
public record.
Carlos Avalo, reside in Boston. Oh, actually in Montour. I'm here today because I have a lot of concerns about the transportation department. I called up Beverly, is your secretary, right?
When did you call? Recently?
I called last year, but I've been following up on this, and
Okay.
I got a call from one of your personnel in transportation. I don't remember the name right now, but he assured me that this wasn't going on, and if it was, he was going to put a stop to it. What's happening is overcrowded buses. I don't think this is happening here in Clewiston or in Labelle. It could be happening, I don't know. But in Montour, since there's a lot of buses, the buses are very crowded. Somebody's turning a blind eye and doesn't care. Students are riding on each other's lap, inappropriate touching, boys and girls, that could follow to other things. They're taking their seat belts and hooking them around and sitting on the seat belt. So 3 to a seat, that makes another person sit on there, sitting in the aisles as well. Not only sitting in the aisles, laying down in the aisles. I got several pictures, and pictures are worth a lot. I'll pass them to you if you want. They don't show faces or anything like that. The individual that took the pictures is a student as well, and I requested not to take faces or any individual student for that matter, for privacy. And you need to look into this because no child is safe riding like that in buses. Okay.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Avalo. I appreciate you being here.
The other thing I had wasn't on this agenda, but I wanted to request a graduation for the senior, a change date instead of the date that's programmed. I think you have it for May 13th. Is that correct?
Graduation is May 13th.
I just had a
That's right.
request, see if you can change that date. It's so kind of you.
Okay. If I don't know if there's a specific reason why, if you want to reach out to Ms. Collins and set up an appointment with me to talk specifically about that, I'll be glad to do that. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Avalo. We'll certainly look into these very serious concerns. And one of the problems we're having is we need bus drivers really bad. So if you know of anyone that is interested in working that wants to drive a bus, Lewiston, Montour, Pioneer, anywhere in the area, Moorhaven, we'll take them all. So thank you.
Mr. Superintendent, do we have any more citizen comments?
We did have someone reach out to us that requested comment time as well, and that was from Javier. Is Javier here? I don't recognize anyone else. Okay, I'm sorry, then at this time I do not.
Thank you. Okay, consent agenda. Mr. Superintendent, do you want me to go ahead? Do I ask? It's been a month. Do I ask now if we want to move anything to action?
Yep,
Okay.
sure.
Are there any items on the consent agenda that would like to be moved to the action? You're grinning.
I feel attacked. No, because I don't
I'm
have anything.
down the line. What would you like to move tonight, Ms. Gleason?
I don't have anything.
Nothing?
That's why I'm over here just giggling.
That's cute. All right.
Well, thank
Seeing that we have nothing that needs to move, Mr. Superintendent, do I have your recommendation on the consent agenda?
I recommend your favorable consideration and approval on the consent agenda as printed.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion made by Ms. Busen and a second by Reverend Brown. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. All right, action item A, new personnel allocation request. Mr. Superintendent, do I have your recommendation?
I recommend your favorable consideration and approval of the new personnel allocation request as printed in the agenda.
Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? None, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Sorry, I forgot to tell you who motioned that, Ms. Collins. I'm trying to prep myself for later. Moving on to action item B, deletion of positions. Mr. Superintendent, do you have your recommendation?
Yes, on this item, this is a cleanup from HR. We're not cutting any positions or any personnel. This is old positions that were listed on the books that we're not currently using. And so HR is just cleaning up some of the stuff that they have. And so at this point in time, I recommend you approve the deletion of the positions as printed in the agenda.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Awesome. Any further discussion? None, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Awesome, motion carries. And we listed Reverend Brown making the motion and Mr. Sandberg seconding that. Action item C, hearing proposed policy revisions as advertised. At this time, I will open the hearing for the proposed policy revisions as advertised. Do we have any citizen comment? Seeing none, I will ask for a recommendation from the superintendent.
Thank you. Madam Chairman, members of the board, I respectfully ask your favorable consideration and approval of the notice of proposed amended rule developments and the subsequent policy numbers as printed in the agenda and that was advertised.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Saberdyke and a second by Reverend Brown. Any further discussion on these policies? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? Motion carries. And at this time, I'll close this hearing. Old business. Mr. Superintendent? Do we need to take a motion?
Yes,
On the revised Henry County?
Yes, we do want to get that approved. And we did make some edits after the last meeting. And again, I just want to point out that this strategic plan, number one, is a common denominator document that will be used as we go forward in everything from the business items to financials that are spent and how we invest our time and money as Hendry County Schools. This is meant to be a live document, and so from time to time, we will continue editing, adding, and improving the document as we go forward because we do want to continue to improve our district from year to year anyway. And so with that in mind, at this time, Madam Chairman, I recommend approval of the Hendry County Schools Strategic Plan as printed.
Do I have a motion to approve the revised Hendry County School Strategic Plan?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Vasquez and a second by Mr. Timberlake. Any further discussion?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Okay, Houston?
So there's been a couple of different incidences over actually this past couple of weeks that have really pushed me back to the strategic plan and made me start looking at the language in it and gave me a different perspective, a different set of goggles to look from. And I get concerned with some of the language, particularly as we are rolling towards, the discussion on equity. And I want to see how, the definition of people's equity is different. Some see it as a floor and some see it as a ceiling. And I want to ensure that the equity that we're pushing and promoting in this district is not one that lowers the bar for achievement for all so everybody can catch up, but that provides those ground floor supports to make it a platform for the marginalized groups, like I mentioned before, the concerns I had with, particularly identifying those groups with achievement gaps in them. And I want to make sure that when we're talking about equity in here and being very clear in our document that we are talking about helping all students achieve at a higher level, as opposed to putting a ceiling on it and holding others back, or lowering the bar in order to meet the criteria the data that we're trying to produce here. Some other things that have made me think is I would like to have our names of our steering committee. I think if you are going to be that influential on a document like that, then your name needs to be mentioned in here, as well as how we paid for this, how what the funding sources are, and also, I've been carrying around a Palm Beach County School District strategic plan for many, 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 many years. And when you read their strategic plan, cover to cover, I think you have a very good idea of where they were at and where they were going, and they were very clear on, how Palm Beach County was stacking up in the state and the nation on national tests. I'm not seeing that same kind of information here, where our community has a really good grasp of where we're going, or where we're at, and I don't really think, I think it could be improved. I know that I have given this strategic plan as a model to illustrate some of the key points that I would like as a community member, a parent, a stakeholder, and a board member, these data sets to see, and I'm not seeing it in this plan. So, I think it's better than what we started with, which was nothing. I'm glad that it is going to be a working document, but what we're looking at now, what I'm looking at now, and as it stands, I just don't feel like I want to support that.
Anything else? Any more discussion? Do I have a motion to approve the revised Hendry County Schools strategic plan?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries with Ms. Beeson. Nay. You have Mr. Bassett, that's your motion. And Sarah, I can do the second on that one.
I believe so.
Okay, moving on. Board member business A, presentation capital revenue follow-up.
Yep. Ms. Cox has prepared some presentations for us tonight. This will be the first of those, and this will be an interactive conversation, and at the end we'll have some action to take care of. Ms. Cox?
Yes, good evening, board members, superintendent. At the March 1st board meeting, we talked about some new capital revenue streams, and this presentation is going to expand a little more on that. There was interest in looking further into impact fees and a half-cent sales tax, and the board requested kind of a deeper look at some of the needs in the capital funds area. So this presentation is going to go a little more in depth and give us some realistic scenarios on large capital projects that we discussed. So this is a draft of our 5-year capital plan. Please note this is in very draft form. This is a document you will see in the tentative and final budget books going forward. This will kind of help portray the capital needs in the various areas. The plan that you'll see in the budget book will be a little more detailed than this. This is kind of a high-level view that outlines over the next 5 years what we project our revenues to look like, and then what we project our appropriations to look like based on needs.
And we will break that out by areas, construction, maintenance, safety, technology, and other, and debt service. The other will include things like buses, district fleet vehicles, but the other areas are specific to the individuals who oversee those areas. So one thing I want to point out on here is that if you look this over in detail, a red flag, I mean, if I was looking at this, a red flag would be, well, look at that increasing fund balance, right? We go from $1.6 million in 2023 to over $6 million in 2027. But what I want to point out is that we have a lot of capital projects in ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. We were able to tackle some large projects with that funding, so we have $7.2 million of capital in ESSER 2 and ESSER 3. So that's kind of contributing towards that. And again, just know this is in very draft form, so the further out we get, 24 to 27, the more that's likely to change as we move along. So impact fees, we laid out the groundwork for those at the last meeting, and I've listed some pros and cons here. Depending on how you look at it, it could be a pro or a con. How the revenue is derived is primarily from new residents coming in to build a home. Could be existing residents possibly wanting to build a home in the area as well. Another pro is that based on the housing permit data that we got from the Board of County Commissioners, we know we could have collected $3+ million based on our old fee structure as well. We have, this is going to provide funds to accommodate the infrastructure needed to new development. That includes construction, reconstruction, and improvements. And this funding source is also exempt from the cost per student station when we use impact fees to raise or repay certificates of participation, which is a debt service mechanism. And I'll talk more about cost per student station in a couple of slides. Some of the cons are that it is dependent on the housing market, which creates more risk when we talk about obligating it to long-term, large capital projects. This funding cannot be used for repairs and maintenance, which is a bulk of our need in the realm of capital. And then it could not help alleviate the general fund from capital expenditures. That's just because our majority of capital expenditures are maintenance, which it could not be used for. And then this could not help supplemental capital village fund if we were awarded the special facilities construction fund, which would be to build a new elementary school in Labelle. If you have any questions as I move along, just feel free to ask.
I have one.
Okay.
Back to the red flag page. So you're talking about the ESSER 2 and 3 came in. We're looking at 7 million-ish.
Yes, ma'am.
Has all of that already been obligated or appropriated, or we just have?
No, we just received ESSER 2 in September, and that was over $10 million. So you can imagine that would take some time to draw down, especially when we're talking large capital projects and needing to follow procurement policies, bidding things out, etc. So that process to spend those funds can get pretty lengthy. And then same with ESSER 3, we literally just got the award for that last week or the week before. And so those funds, ESSER 2 runs through September of 2023, and then ESSER 3 runs through September of 2024. So we have a couple of years of those funds.
And can those funds be used on LHS roof?
Potentially. There's a lot of language on using it for something like that, so we did not go down that route.
Well, what can it be used on for capital?
It could be used on pretty much anything. Anything except like construction, reconstruction, those kind of large projects where the federal government would have an interest.
Wait, I want to make sure there was no misunderstanding. You said, can these funds, are you talking about the ESSER 3 funds?
2 and 3.
Oh,
Okay, and
okay.
that's how I interpreted it.
Okay. I thought that we pretty much deemed that the roof was, it had to be pretty much how we were going to enhance student education and overcome the COVID barriers. I think that really tying that roof to it was pretty tough.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and that's why I say, with all the legal requirements with it, it wasn't very clear if we could. And, with the money that we had, we wanted to spread it between the multiple areas that we like academics, IT, maintenance, kind of spread the funds around to go towards the needs as a whole rather than all the money would be used for maintenance, just go to one project.
All right, so what would be like the capital cut of that? And would that ESSER money offset, like the expenditures that we would make out of our current capital? Like, does it reimburse that fund?
Not necessarily. I mean, if there were things that we wrote into ESSER that we had pre-approved to be reimbursed.
Okay, that's right, you had to have it approved.
Yes,
All right, never
yes.
mind. Wrong rabbit hole, carry on.
Okay. So we'll move on to the half-cent sales tax, some of the pros and cons, depending again how you look at it, how the revenue is derived. This does come from residents and non-residents, so the people living here and people traveling through the county. Based on the 2021 Board of County Collections data and the Florida Economic and Demographic Research forecast for Hendry County specifically, we could have generated up to $2 million per year. This language, the half-cent sales tax, when you write the referendum very broadly, it is the most flexible funding source for capital purchases. There was recent legislation that passed that allows us to purchase buses with this funding source, whereas in the past it was not allowed. It is more stable compared to other capital revenue options, and I just mean stable based on, you know, where the money comes from. You know, people are always going to buy things, and you can kind of determine the length of it. You could pass the referendum for 10, 20, 30 years. So that's what I mean when I say it's more stable. It could help alleviate capital expenses from the general fund because it could cover those day-to-day maintenance expenses that were incurring, buses, et cetera, things that we're funding through capital millage. It could help supplement the capital millage fund in the fact if we get the special facilities for a new elementary, because that special facilities funding would require a large payback from the capital millage. And this would kind of help supplement while we were in that repayment period. And then this funding source is also exempt from cost per student station when we use it to repay debt service. And again, I'll talk about cost per student station in a couple of slides. So this funding source is also a little risky when we obligate it to long-term, large capital projects, and we'll walk through some of those, just because really the annual funding that we would get may not even be enough to make an annual debt service payment. And this is not enough to fully make that debt service payment for a new school. So a few of the projects that we talked about at the last meeting, large capital projects that we have, is the re-roof at Labelle High School. That was an estimated $6 million a year ago. We can only imagine what it may be now. A new elementary school in Labelle, we could estimate that would be, you know, at least $50 million, depending on the number of seats that we wanted. And then the new addition at Labelle High School to get rid of the current portables was an estimated $8 million again last year. You can only imagine what that was. So these three projects alone total at least $74 million. So we'll just walk through some scenarios of our current funding, what we could do for each of these projects, and then what it would look like if we had additional revenue sources. So we have the re-roof at Labelle High. Honestly, we don't really have a lot of options here with our current funding sources. We could make it happen out of the capital millage fund if we were able to spread that project over 2 years, like for example, start it now, pay for some of it next year, finish paying for it. But this would eliminate funding for most other capital projects because our capital millage revenue is only $4.2 million. So this would wipe away most of that. It would also diminish our fund balance, which is not necessarily something we want to do. We could finance a roof, you know, that's not really an ideal option, but if it absolutely had to be done, it is an option. We have CO and capital outlay and debt service, CO and DS. Those funds would not even generate enough over the next 30 years to even cover that roof. We have racetrack revenue, that's already obligated to debt service, so that would be out of the question, which would leave us a combination of sources to pay for this roof if we wanted to move forward with our current funding. So what if we had impact fees or sales tax? I put could not be used with a question mark because Ms. Shattuck shared at the last meeting that she interpreted that impact fees could be used for a roof replacement. And I chimed in right after and said, no, I don't think so. But I highly respect Ms. Shattuck in her opinion, and it had me intrigued. And I thought, well, let me call some other districts who have impact fees and see what they would think. And it was actually quite interesting because some said yes. If that's what you needed to do to keep that building in service, then you could use impact fees. Others said no. So it was kind of interesting how there was not a consensus on that, but that's why I have that question mark there. So we have some further digging to do if we get to that option. And then sales tax, it wouldn't generate enough to fully fund the project, so we could combine it with like capital millage, or if we went the debt service route, it could be used to help repay some debt service. So the new elementary, no funding source could help us, and no current funding source could help us in this option. If we had a debt service payment, I mean, if you say a $50 million elementary school over 30 years, you're looking at $3+ million a year in debt service, which would wipe our capital millage fund out, and the other sources don't even generate enough funds to accommodate that type of debt service payment. So what if we had some other funding sources for Labelle Elementary, for a new elementary in Labelle? Special facilities construction, this is our most viable option. We've been talking about this. It does require DOE approval. It also would require that we repay up to $1 million or $2.8 million per year over 3 to 5 years. So that would be a significant hit, and why an additional revenue source in capital during that repayment period would truly be beneficial for us. I hit that bullet where it would greatly reduce other projects in capital millage. It would also reduce our fund balance in the capital millage fund, and I'll kind of talk about why that is extremely important to protect that fund balance. And cost per student station must be adhered to when using this funding source. So the impact fees and sales tax, we could use either one of these sources to make a debt service payment. Like I said, a $3+ million debt service payment potentially on a new elementary school. Impact fees, while we might generate that, you know, it could be iffy how long we would make that. And then the sales tax, you know, $2 million wouldn't be enough to cover, and we'd have to combine that with another funding source, which may not be a viable option either, which that's why I just reiterate it makes that facilities construction fund the best bet in this case. So the cost per student statute is in Florida Statute 1013-64. In summary, it says a district may not use funds for any new construction that exceeds the total cost per student station, with some exceptions. So some of those exceptions are when you're using impact fees or sales tax to repay debt service. Currently, the cost per student station are on the screen. Elementary is $23,301, middle is at $25,000, and high is at $32,684. So I'll run you through a scenario of what that would look like. So these amounts are adjusted annually for inflation, and anytime you do a construction project, regardless of how you're paying for it, even if we did sales tax or impact fees, you still have to document the cost and submit that information to DOE. So not all costs are included in cost per student station. You can see here what is included in cost per student station and what is not. This is in general. If you read through the statute, there are some little nuances, and it could vary by funding source. What is included, excluded, or percent maximums and minimums. So when we apply this to some of our large capital project needs, a new Labelle Elementary, let's say it was 1,000 student stations, and we could only, you know, spend $23,000 per student station. That gives $23.3 million for a new elementary in Labelle. And realistically, you know, we could be looking at a lot more than that. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm looking at a 1,000 student station. Maybe I'm like in the dark here, but I thought that you could only build back like
This is just a scenario. This is not.
Okay, so I was like, I mean, are we really
Yes.
looking at a 1,000
No.
person school? So then why are we putting $23 million up there?
This is just a scenario,
Okay, all right.
a simplistic scenario. If we did 1,000
Okay.
student stations, this is the cost per student station. So when we look at like capital millage, those funding sources that would have to comply with
Okay.
the cost per student station, that is the max we could spend from that funding source. But when we looked at like impact fees or sales tax, this did not apply, so you could go above and beyond that. And same with an addition at Labelle. Let's say we added a building that held 300 students at the $32,684 per student station. That would give us $9.8 million to cover those included costs. You know, if we had any of those excluded costs, like the site purchase, utilities, those would be excluded. So you know, I'm always going to throw in this in our slides, these other considerations, because you know, These aren't easily made decisions. There's a lot to think about, and so it takes careful and intentional planning. We have to maintain a healthy fund balance in capital millage for emergency purposes. You know, there could be HVAC, roofs, large issues that come up that we have to be prepared to face in capital millage. And one of those is a hurricane. If we were to have a hurricane, think about the damage that that could cause and the amount of money we want to have set aside to recover from that. And then really the overall economy, because every single one of these funding sources is affected by the economy. If the economy starts going down, any one of these funding sources could be easily impacted. So actions for impact fees now, and I'm not suggesting you take a vote, I'm just saying this is what we may want to do is the school board would vote whether it's impact or implement an impact fee. You know, we've already gone in with the county on doing an impact fee study to see what an equitable or reasonable fee would be if we chose to go that route. And then immediately after that study, the Board of County Commissioners would adopt an ordinance to impose the impact fees that would have to be publicly advertised for 90 days before we would begin the collection. And then we, the district, would enter into an interlocal agreement for the collection and disbursement of those funds.
When will the Board of County Commissioners have that study complete, so we can have some numbers on that?
Do you want to answer that, Mr.
So they about a week and a half ago let an RFP out, and the RFP is looking for a consultant to do. They actually have to do a study. They look at the sales, the values, and they look at the district, they look at the county, and then they look at what would the equitable amount be to collect, and then how that would be distributed. The RFP, I believe, is due back by the end of this month, and so we should have those results. And then, so maybe by the month of May, your board should be able, don't hold my feet to the fire on that, obviously, because it may take processing time and preparation time, but hopefully by the month of May, no later than June, you should have in front of you what the results of that would be.
And that they would have their recommendations on that.
Correct. And again, please don't hold my feet to the fire on the timeline, because the RFP is out, the RFP will get awarded, then the company will go to work. And it's kind of hard to judge how long that said process will take. But I would hope by this summer we would have those informations back in our hand.
And what does that do to our timeline for moving forward with this and getting this on the ballot?
This one doesn't have to be ballot. This is just the impact fee. And so the impact fee, if you move forward, you agree to the study, and then if you like that, then you can vote to institute the impact fee and then send that to the Board of County Commissioners for them to ratify and then start if they also pass it.
So that doesn't have to go.
That one does not require voter approval. That is correct. Well, you should ask that though.
And then we split the impact fees with the,
That's the purpose of the consultant, because the consultant would come in and they have an algorithmic way of looking at what the expenses are when said person moves in and builds a home, and how much should go toward the county, how much should go toward the school system, and then any other interested, or pieces that would be expensed.
So I was looking at the impact fees, and I know I've been pushing that, so I was looking at the infrastructure means a fixed capital expenditure, or fixed capital outlay for construction, reconstruction, improvement, land acquisition, and improvement design, engineering, permit costs, and other related construction costs. So those areas that were excluded by others could be cut, that money could be covered if you're looking at a new, an extended facility at the high school. I tried to find that on the roof since I talked to Ms. Shattuck. I called her, and so I'm not sure about the roof either. So I really wanted to find that, but I couldn't find that. But, so yes, I got buried on that one. But it looks like the impact fees could do a lot of those things, land acquisition, design, all that stuff, that on other parts of what we're looking at for funding was not available. Now, I'm not saying we got a lot of money. I'm not sure why we wouldn't be looking at every fund that might be available, so it doesn't last forever. But if it's $1 million or $2 million or $5 million, is extra. The other thing that I was looking at is school concurrency, which hasn't been mentioned. And so according to that, school concurrency is a system of use regulations designed to meet the demands placed on public schools by new residential development. this is done in conjunction with the county. You have to have the plan submitted and so forth. But it's like an impact fee in a situation, but it's an upfront fee for the developers that are doing the PUD. So rather than waiting for each house to be built, the construction company or the developer has to document so much money up front, is my understanding of how it works. But we haven't looked at that. So when we're looking at sources, I don't know, the sales tax maybe, the impact fees, the concurrence. I think we need to be looking at all of that because we need the money. Look at our $70 million. I mean, 30-year loans, stuff like that. I think anything where we can walk away with $3 million or $4 million against that, it's a hell of a thing.
The concurrency, have you looked at that or thought about that, or were you aware of it?
So, I have. So the concurrency works very closely related to an impact fee. Let me help you try to wrap your mind around what the difference is. So right now, a good example would be Port Labelle. The developer is gone from there that originally developed that. Right now, you just have people that has the ability to come in and buy a lot and then build a home, and then random all over the place. And so, in order to capture what the said cost would be, the impact fee would be to that builder. The concurrency would be to where, let's just say Lennar, one of the nation's largest home builders, come in and somewhere in the county and bought 300 acres and wanted to put in a large development. They may choose up front to say, the assessment would be $1 million or $2 million for this development. We'll just pay you up front, and let's not worry about each lot that we build, and just and basically fund it all up front at one time. It's almost something the county would work out when the developer come in to do their plans or PUD to get their permit, and they may say, look, we prefer to do it that way. And if that's the case, they just figure that as an upfront cost and pay it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so it's almost on like a negotiated case-by-case basis, depending on which developer comes in and the size of the
So
development.
the developer has a little bit of say-so in that process.
My understanding is there's some negotiations that can take place there when they come in for that permitting process.
So then that actually does take the place of the impact fee.
For that said development, right?
Or that's right.
Exactly.
Yeah. So-
And I'm not sure.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No, no, you're good.
I'm not sure Port Labelle didn't donate lots of lots for the school sites and so forth as part of their original PUD. We own, right, our school district has lots of property throughout that whole district that are now owned by our county for development because that's the way that was designed. So if we could put a school on that piece of property, I'm not sure they're big enough, but that, or we could sell it and buy some other property with it. I think we have some flexibility with that property that was with the PUD for Port Labelle. Sorry. Thank you.
Okay, so actions for a sales tax, if we wanted to get this on the November 8th ballot, this is under a tighter timeline. This would go before the voters. And we really need some action now from the board on whether we really wanted to pursue this additional funding source. Because by the May 3rd meeting, we would need to get a resolution to you for approval. And that would kind of kick off the rest of the timeline. We'd have to submit the resolution to APAGA to go through a performance audit. They'd have to release that by September 8th. We'd have to get it posted to our website. There's some notifications with the Department of Revenue that we would have to go through, and then let the ballot play out on November 8th.
So, is that the end of it?
Yes.
Yeah. And so that's the end of our presentation. Thank you again, Ms. Cox. I think there's others, and she'll continue to answer questions if you have them. However, I think the key is for this one now, we're shifting gears from impact fees to the half-cent sales tax. And this one, as you notice the top bullet on the slide there, the time frame is tonight, the time frame is now, that as a board, we need your direction. And what we're asking for specifically is for you to approve us to begin the process and write the resolution for the half-cent sales tax. At the end of the day, and I spoke with a board member earlier today that said, I'm not in favor of having to pay a cent more than I need to. And I'm right there with you. I pay as much tax, sales tax, income tax as anyone. However, I can tell you, the simple fact is our school district expenses is outgrowing our income. And if we're going to maintain a high quality of education in buildings and facilities, then we have to fund them and fund them adequately. And so within the last week, Ms. Cox has already, within the last couple of weeks, Ms. Cox has started our budget process for the upcoming school year. And we received a very nice base student allocation increase. When you weigh in the expense that we have that we're already aware of, we're already behind, even with the base student allocation increase, which speaks to our expenses are outpacing our income. And so this is not complete yet. We have more things to do. There's a lot of legwork yet to be done. However, I'm asking you and recommending to you at this time that you do vote on a motion, make and approve a motion that allows staff to move forward with the half-cent sales tax and create the resolution to bring back before you in May at the latest.
Do I have a motion to make that? Any further discussion? All in favor?
No, I do have some discussion.
You're right.
Mr. Adams, my iPad died, so I don't have anything in front of me anymore, but why are we putting this under old business? I mean, why isn't this an action item? Like that, I just feel like in the sake of transparency, like I would have liked to seen it as an action item where I think everybody knew that there was going to be a vote for this resolution to a half-cent sales tax. And I don't really think it was entirely clear. I sought clarification on it today, but in the presentation, so those are my 2 cents. I also want to know so if we approve this resolution and we get into OPAGA, and OPAGA says it's not going to happen, like, what is, it's one what you told me there are halt mechanisms on it. If we find out, like, what are those? Can you articulate those for me?
Ms. Cox is for better version of the
I'll be honest, I don't know that OPAGA would stop it. They will go through a performance audit. They may or may not have findings at the conclusion of that, and that's why they require us to put it on our website at least 60 days, I believe, before the election, so the public is aware, I guess, of our situation and can make hopefully an informed decision on the sales tax. But I don't think there's really anything that could halt it other than the board saying, no, we're going to stop.
Any further discussion?
Yes, so if we do this, and I know that's sort of been the direction our superintendent wants to go, what about the impact fee? Are you still going to support that? I think that's a fair question.
You're recommending that?
Yeah, I'm sorry, the superintendent, yes,
Oh,
sir.
yeah, so look, I'll work at your discretion with regard to what we bring forward and present. We have agreed with the county to move forward with the RFP, and then we will evaluate what the proposals of the RFP is and move forward with that and bring all of that information to this board, just as it has been presented today, it's been discussed here tonight.
And what about the concurrency?
That is, the concurrency is something, again, that, in my understanding and knowledge of that, which is only what I'm learning and reading and taking and picking up with folks, that is something that said company would engage in once they come to planning and PUD to get the permits for that. I don't think that's something that we can impose.
No, I don't think we can impose it.
Right. Would we accept it if somebody come in and said, look, rather than pacing this out, rather than paying up front, I think we would say that'd be a hard yes.
But I think it would go before zoning and planning as our first step before it gets approved by the county commissioners.
That's correct.
Do we have somebody that sits on that?
We do.
Is that Mr. Busey?
It is.
Because I think it's important that we be heard then, because if it's not recommended to the county commission, usually by the planning and zoning, then it would be carried forward.
Right.
So.
This process seems a little counterintuitive to me, because when I want something or I want like support on it, I'm going to show you exactly like, here it is, this is what I'm asking for this resolution, these are the things, in priority order at this point of what I would want to use that money for. And I just kind of feel like, hey, we're gonna just draft up I'm asking you to draft up a resolution, and then we'll just fill in the blanks afterwards.
Well, no, if you've seen Ms. Cox's presentation, we gave you the high-level stuff that large amounts of money are needed for that we don't have. And that's exactly what it's for. Other than that, the buses was not up there, but it does create the opportunity for us to use that same capital projects we have now and the same capital outlays we have now, but it's ones that we're waiting to be able to afford. The other thing you might note is that we are, and this is not exactly part of this discussion, but it sort of is, we are looking very seriously at a new school site in Labelle. And one of the things that we'll come back to you in May, no later than May, with that presentation as well, and give you some information and give you the discretion on some decision things that have to be made there as well. But one of the things that the State Special Facilities Use Fund, which that's going to be our only option, there's no way that we're going to be able to fund that outside of that. When we enter the Special Facilities Use Fund, one of the things that they look at is have we leveraged all of our ability to earn income from our local sources. And so these, one or both of these, will be one of the check boxes that we will be able to say we either are doing or in the processes of getting approved from our taxpayers and from our citizens. So that we're able to, what they're able to do, they don't want to leave us out to dry, having to give them $2.8 billion with no other way to repay it while we still have other schools to maintain and so on and so forth.
Going along with what Ms. Busen had to say, being in front. So rather than when a new corporation or an LLC comes in through the zoning board, and they've already got their plan, and we say, nope, we don't like it because you have to contribute so much to the schools, or you have to contribute so much land, or you have to, how can we be a little more proactive on that? You know, they don't come to the zoning planning board until they've had layouts and architects and plans and financial planners and everybody else has their input in it. Well, we're going to wait until almost the end of the line ring and say, well, wait a minute, we want to change that. How can we be proactive when and they're coming to the county. I mean, they're meeting in the county and they're talking to, I can't think of her name. Assemblage. Yeah. And so she knows, sort of has a finger on these companies that are coming in and they're looking at stuff like that. Maybe they want to build a school or something. How can we get a foot in the door prior to them coming to zoning and planning and discuss with them what impact they have on the school? I mean, that's sort of a state policy there, but nobody's ever addressed it as far as I know. I sat on the zoning and planning board, I never remember that being discussed.
It's not on a regular basis, but since I've been in this seat, I've met with 2 developers.
Yeah.
That has requested meetings and said, here's what we're looking at building, what would it take? And gave us the opportunity to say, well, you're gonna need either add to this school, build this on the site and stuff like that, if that's what you mean.
That's what I mean. But did they do that?
They've not gotten that far yet, they're still in the process.
So they came to the district?
Correct.
So how would they know to come to the district?
In these particular ones, they're large, very large.
Yeah, well, I know there's some big ones coming,
Yeah,
there's no doubt in my mind.
And they were talking to us about just, why don't we just build a school site on our master plan?
Yeah.
And what would that take? And so we help them formulaically understand how to figure that.
So I'm just asking if we just push that a little forward with them somehow. So when they meet with the summer and they're going over the plans, maybe she should mention, well, you know, you got to discuss with the school board or with the district superintendent.
Yeah, and you sat in the interlocal agreement meeting, were you in on that with me? That was the first one you and I met.
The first one.
Yes, sir. And that's part of what that is making sure that not only said developers, but then school and county and cities are also communicating as well, which Tom Connor signed the current agreement we're operating off of, if that tells you anything. And so that's why we're trying to update that. And that is basically the guidelines of how we sit and we communicate and keep each other in the forefront of of what the plans are, who's been coming in, what numerical, what's the numbers of PUDs being, or long-range plans, so that we all can do a better job of planning and keeping everyone up to date on what we need to do.
Thank you. Well, I will share with the board, I sat in that meeting, and it is so complex. There's so many factors to take into consideration. I was very impressed with our superintendent, and how we had to sort of man up and discuss all these different parts or situations, and what do we do here, and what do we do there, and where do we get this money, and what's mandated by the state, and so forth. I'm very impressed with how involved being a superintendent is. Much more than just running the school and all the schools and everything else. It's a lot of politics locally with those interlocal agreements.
Yeah, it's a big business.
It's a big business. That's it. Thanks. Are you sure? Oh, no, I'm not sure. At least for now.
So on what you're asking us to do tonight, you're gonna bring back a resolution with a plan. I mean, everything in me was like, yeah, I want to see the plan before I say yay or nay to it. I want to see your list. So I just want to make sure that I'm clear that you're asking us to vote tonight to approve to bring the resolution back to us again to say whether we are okay with it going to the next step.
Yes, exactly. And within the plan, if you will, that's what the resolution is. The resolution itself, the language, Ms. Cox and Ms. Shattuck and everyone will have to weigh in, because the resolution itself has to be very detailed on everything and every dollar that will be spent. And we're collaborating with other districts who inadvertently left things out or thought they could use a broad stroke but then expand when they found out that was not the case.
So you're telling me that this now, but you just said that we have our list of the things that we need. I don't want to hear about a broad stroke. I want,
Right.
this is exactly, because
Right.
the people are going to ask me, Stephanie, why am I going to be paying another $500, $250 a year and taxes for this half-cent tax for schools?
The point was it can't be a broad stroke. It has to be detailed, delineated. The funds will be spent on, and it has to be, and if it's not in that verbiage legally, we cannot spend it on that.
I mean, because I feel like a little, like I know that when we were talking about, and I know I upset some people at like Labelle Elementary when I was talking about like the vision of potentially, I just see value in the land that they're on and the zoning that they're in, and, you know, moving campuses. And then, you know, I hear tonight for the first time that, you know, we're considering, you know, a new school site and.
No, we've discussed that. I'll discuss that.
Well, didn't you mention something about it with that, with a new school site, the possibility after the discussions with the state of actually one school large enough?
No, we've had that discussion.
Yeah, I know, but like very vague, like, you know, when we had that discussion, it was, the DOE person had just left, and because I kept saying, I think this is a better idea. And then they validated that, yes, because remember, we always thought that they're not gonna give you this special construction money to build anything bigger than replacing the actual campus.
Right.
And so now that the lady verified that, you know, if you have, you know, just like I said, Up the Grove, which is, you know, its lifespan is you know, it's had a renovation, but it's at, you know, end of its lifespan of combining those schools. But like we haven't, you know, when you do talk about that and moving to another site, then, you know, then that industrial zoning, I mean, that's a revenue source. That is. So, I mean, I'm not really sure that I understand the moving pieces and what could be additional revenue. Could we sell that site? And like, how does that, because, you know, just like you said, the DOE is going to come to us and say, have you basically milked your local economy for every tax dollar you can get out of them yourselves before we take the tax dollars that they've already paid and reallocate them back to you.
Yeah. Our special facilities director, has just done a phenomenal job at forging a great relationship with the special facilities team. And they have they understand that our group is new and never been through a facility construction project, and they are just doing a phenomenal job of handling the situation with us side by side and making sure that we get the correct approvals and that all of those check boxes are marked, helping us with the timeline, and all those type decisions will be it's a lot of work. It's going to take a lot of meetings. It's going to take some gnashing of teeth. It's going to take a lot of voting and things happening. But our facilities director is on top of it, and we'll be bringing those things when those things are a part of that discussion.
So do we have a first and a second?
We do, we're down to, is any more discussion?
Interested in this resolution?
All right, so then, all in favor of the approval of the resolution?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, any more business finance discussion? That's Ms. Cox again.
Yes, ma'am. So attached to this agenda item are some recommendations that I wanted to bring forward in streamlining and improving processes in the finance department. A lot of this is procurement based and would require change to board policy 6320, but before we brought forward any of those changes, I wanted to get your consensus and approval on them. So the first two, under 1A and 1B, is increasing our bid threshold from 25,000 to 50,000 and increasing our board approval contract threshold from 15,000 to 50,000. And this would bring us into alignment with the Florida Administrative Code. Oh, I'm sorry.
What would be the purpose of this?
The purpose of this is kind of to reduce the burden on the finance department. We don't have somebody dedicated to procurement right now. So someone who could keep us up to date on bids, make sure we're complying with piggybacks. And it would also just kind of bring us into the 21st century. This was a rule that passed several years ago, increasing that threshold. So it would kind of just bring us up to date on that. And this would not be, to take away any information from the board or try to make things less transparent. If anything, we want to make it transparent, and so we'd be more than willing to share any information that you wish. But this would kind of just help us run more efficiently in finance and stay on top of it. Did you get some new employees in finance? We did get an administrator of finance, yes. Procurement is one of the areas she's working on. She's also taken a huge undertaking with school internal funds. She's got a lot of expertise in that realm. She's got a lot on her plate. She's doing a lot. But to have, outside of administration, a single person who would help the department, because we have a lot of construction or things that are coming up. And I tell Mr. Dugan, thank God that he is reaching out to this company and trying to find ways that we can piggyback on and get these contracts in place for us, because we just don't have that capacity in finance. I mean, we're doing everything we can. We want to make sure we're compliant, but this would just help us bring that threshold up to be more efficient. And oh, I'm sorry, I have it plugged in. I don't know why it's not showing. Let me just
Thank you. Share with me.
Have the current procurement procedures hindered any purchasing or?
I wouldn't say they've hindered.
I would.
Say it.
And I'll give you a specific example. Mr. Busey needed a delivery truck with a gate that folded down because the one he has,
Oh, yes, sir. We had to go back to that one, so I'm sorry.
yeah, doesn't have reverse. It only goes forward, and the tailgate on the back won't hold a pallet. This was the old school ones.
Oh, yeah.
And so with the situation we're in, with being able to get supplies of anything, is just unbelievable. The truck is one of them. He finally found one coming on the source well, but it was above the threshold of 10. And so we had to wait. And in the process of waiting for that, the truck is gone and not another one in sight for an undisclosed amount of time. So in that instance, we lost the ability to get a tool that our staff badly needs Now we've got a man that's, elderly, that's picking boxes and stuff up, living home, telling him to the time, letting it down. And so, yes, in that instance, it is absolutely hindering us from not being able to make the purchases in the time that we have that need.
Is that the one you called about?
It is, and we missed it because of it. Right, but we could have acted.
The one with purchases, I thought that's what.
One of them was and one wasn't.
5,500, there was 3 vehicles that were approved.
Yeah, but we missed the one truck though, the one main one, going through that process made us miss the opportunity to buy it, I'll put it that way. And so he had the ability to spend up to a set amount. He could have pulled the trigger on it that day with source code bid, which means that it was already been an established price or a government negotiated fee. And it was going to be the same no matter at that point in time, no matter who we got it from. He found it was available, we could have moved forward. But not being able to spend over that amount without approval, we don't know now when we will have to get.
I know it's kind of backwards, but what was the 5,500 that wasn't to replace that truck?
I'm sorry, I don't know specifically which ones.
5,500, sir?
The 5,500 that was going to replace our box truck, sir?
Yeah.
And that's not the truck we're
That
discussing?
is, but that's the one we missed.
And, yeah, we missed, when we were calling, it got sold like that
Yeah,
half.
so he's
that day.
essentially asking approval for it, where it does come like at this point.
We approved the 5,500 Chevy purchase from Alan J, so how did we miss it if we just approved the
Yeah.
purchase?
We did not buy a 5,500 from Allen J. That one was not available. That was sold that day. But we were able to secure another box truck. And I don't know if I can share that with Mr. Swindle because Matt might not have said that again. But we did secure another box truck and it'll be here about 6 to 8 months. 6 months. The other one was on site. So that the 5,500, the big Chevy, would have been on site and we would have been able to take that in a few weeks.
Okay.
Or I'm sorry, I'm a month or so, I can't remember the exact dates.
I'm just kind of confused, I mean, when we're saying that we missed this, but I'm seeing that we paid
That
for
was,
it, so I'm just kind of,
We found a cab over, like the ones that had a cab over the years, just like a week after that.
so now we're going to take, the other truck had the box on it, so now we're taking the box off of our,
No, sir.
putting on this?
No, we're buying-
It has everything.
We're buying a full meal wheel, sir, it's a box, I think it's a 16-foot box, and a large lift gate pack, I think it's a 2,500 pound lift gate that we can put pallets on, and still not be able to fall off with the pallet jack.
Very good. I was just kind of confused there.
It could have, we could have shortened the 6 to 8 month time frame to 30 days or less.
And please,
Yeah.
I gotta check on the time frame there, I could be wrong.
Whatever it is, you get the idea.
Yeah.
It's like you order things for your business.
Oh, yeah.
Gotta wait.
I would have had it by the end of April.
Yeah.
So I'm well aware when I ordered it, I'm well aware.
You know, it's stuff is expensive.
And another, okay, I was gonna use that next. The next one is paper, like copy machine paper right now. Can't get it, we're that far from panic mode to make it to the end of the school year. It's just not available. And so if it becomes available, it needs to spend over a set amount to get this semi-load paper. And we don't pull the trigger on it, it may be gone before he gets that approval to go back and get it. So again, with, being able to operate within that scope of that presented, range of money just makes it a little more optimal for business for us.
So I do have a question with that, what you just said, Peyton. We should have a pretty good idea of how much paper we use annually, correct?
Yeah, there's
So when we have a warehouse and we can't store this stuff in, why are we not purchasing a year's supply of paper?
Well, I think they do, but then they pace it out because the warehouse isn't that big. And so typically when we restock, it's not available now.
So we do not have a facility large enough to store that?
Not that much.
For 1 year?
Not in everything else that we have to store as well, if that makes sense to you.
Okay.
Right. I've mentioned to Mr. Busey, he needs to think about expanding that. And he says, well, how you gonna pay for it? We need extra tax. I'll take this concept.
Yeah, I mean, if we have somewhere else that we could utilize to beef that kind of stuff up, I think we need to look at that.
Right. Yeah.
So what you're saying, if you would have had the authority to do this, you would have had a truck.
In the perfect world, sir, yes.
And probably.
I mean, I don't, even when I do buy something, I don't hold my breath until it gets on site. Because you never know what's gonna happen between that.
It may not be something that happens all the time, but when it does, you want to be able to.
That's right.
Makes sense?
The institutional knowledge on, it's my specialty, on why it is the way it currently is now, is I think that it was at the appropriate threshold. And I'm not one to call names, but there was a superintendent that was, the board at the time had to financially rein in. And that was making everything come before the board.
Yeah, when I looked at the procurement, or the board policy 6320 and saw, the information was dated back to 2003. That's why I really wanted to bring this forward.
So now you know who superintendent is.
It's been, the procurement threshold in statute has been 50,000 for several years now. And increasing the bid threshold isn't necessarily going to directly impact the POs we're bringing to the board. This is just going to reduce the burden of the formal bid process that we go through, which is very lengthy, when we increase that from 25 to 50,000. Now, recommendation D on this document, that is requesting that we increase the board approved PO threshold from 15 to 25, because I'm sure you can see $15,000 is easily spent, and then it kind of gets bogged down in the process of executing POs when we have these situations come up waiting for board approval.
We can always change it back.
We can't always change it back, but I do want you all to be assured that, anytime you need information, we're more than willing to share whatever you need. All procurement contracts, anything over 50, any contract over 50, any PO over 25,000, should you approve this, we will be bringing forward to the board. And that's not, just the only internal control we have in procurement. We're putting a lot of internal controls in place for thresholds below this amount to make sure we're obtaining quotes. The district is getting the best bang for their buck. The costs are going to be reasonable, and we are, trying to get competition in the procurement process.
So you're making sure that in the truck instance, you're trying to bid at least three different bids and things of that nature.
Yeah, most of the vehicles are on the state contract. The state bids a lot of commodities out, and so we're able to utilize their contracts. And so we do look at those. That's kind of our first thing that we look at. Okay, what is the state contracted out? What are their prices looking like? If we don't feel we could utilize them, or it may not get us the best bang for the buck, when we're over that bid threshold, we're going to have to bid it out ourselves, or look at other counties or government agencies that can piggyback on a contract that they already have. Is that going to give us a better bang for the buck?
Might not be a bad idea to look at all of them regardless.
Yeah.
Instead of just going with the government agency, let's look.
Yes, we really need a thorough review of what are we spending per vendor, because it's per vendor, per service, per item. What are we spending on HVAC? And then what procurement vehicles do we have to use? Do we need to piggyback? Do we need to bid it out ourselves? Is there something on state contract? So those are the three avenues that we're constantly looking at when we talk about this procurement threshold. The last recommendation on this document is to no longer bring bills to the board for approval. And this just comes out of most of the purchase orders, everything below $15,000 as of right now. We're issuing those POs, the vendors providing the goods and services, and then we're holding their payment until the board approves it. So we're really already obligated to that payment, and then we're just holding it for board approval, so it's kind of counterintuitive. And now with that PO increasing over 25,000, you'll see those, so you have already approved the PO, which would mean you're authorizing that expense. So it's kind of counterintuitive again to bring the bill back to you to approve us to pay when you've already approved the PO.
And I will say, this is one of the areas where I catch a lot of flack from vendors and local businessmen. You can imagine doing a large job from somebody. If you would have done it at the correct time last month, because we didn't have the second meeting, you would have waited a month plus to get payment. And a lot of vendors are just really disgruntled with us right now about that. And we try to explain to them, but at the end of the day, they have bills to pay as well.
I get that.
Well, it's pretty clear we're no longer in the environment politically or economically that I think that the board was in '03. And I mean, honestly, I mean, like when were we having shortages in, '03 and we're unable to get things and, so, I mean, I can support these and we always have the ability to go back if it's not being used judiciously and correct.
Have you made your recommendation?
I have not, we just reviewed so far. Do we need to do them one at a time, or can we do them as a? Would y'all like to do them one at a time? Just up with the discretion of
You
the
mean A through D, you can do them all.
Okay.
Well, 1 and 2.
Well, what about, is there anybody who has any issue with any of them? You pull them out and you do everything en masse?
Okay, fair enough. Okay, then. Madam Chairman, at this time, I recommend the board approve the document as presented in finance discussion, number 1, procurement, and number 2, finance bills.
Second.
More discussion? Cool? Good? Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Would you all like to continue to receive the list of bills?
I like to see it.
You know what, I go through it sometimes.
Yeah, we're more than willing to
80
still share those
pages.
lists with you. We're moving towards running checks weekly now to kind of get our vendor payments going more frequently, get our vendors paid, so you can start looking for those emails on a weekly basis.
What about,
FYI.
Yes.
like a once a month, just,
If
is
you would
that too
rather-
much? I mean, because I'm like,
No, if you would rather receive it monthly, at the end of every month, we can run the report and send it to you.
is that okay with everybody?
It's fine with me.
If you have any questions as you get those, or if that doesn't work for you, just let us know.
Yes. Thank you very much.
All right, Mr. Superintendent. Board member business item C, Florida School Boards Association invoice that I received from Labelle.
Yeah.
Heart attack?
Right, exactly. So that's, I think it's pretty standard, but I wanted to make sure that this was in front of you as a board. And so therefore, I recommend approval of your 22-23 annual FSBA dues for $15,996.
Second.
Discussion?
I have some discussion. So I saw this come up, and I have thought long and hard about my personal relationship with the Florida School Board Association. And it was very valuable, I felt, as a new school board member. It gave me an opportunity to get a lot of professional development. I'm very fortunate for those opportunities. I've felt that as a rural school board member, I have struggled as of late with relevance of what is being put in front of us. And when I look at, I know that we have the opportunity individually to opt out of being in the Florida School Boards Association, and I would like to do that at this time. The portion that would cover my dues, I could still attend, and you just pay a little higher fee, but for the $3,200 that it costs for me to be in there, the only thing that I could say that I would still use from time to time consultation, and I can consult with our own attorney for a whole lot less than the dues that I'm paying for Florida School Board Association. So I was maybe the first school board member in 30 years to get the certified board member status. I've done it all, but I just kind of feel like my time with them has expired. And I would like to be able to use that money for other professional development opportunities, and as opposed to going with the School Boards Association. Kind of outgrow them.
Well, I've gone to a couple of the trainings. I thought they were very informative. They also do lobbying with the state and the governor and so forth, and I think they speak on our behalf. So I'm keeping my money in.
We just got term limited, y'all. I mean, that's your job. is to keep,
I know.
Is to keep.
And
Is to
who
keep.
do you think was arguing against it? You think it was?
But
I think they supported that.
But they lost. That's your job.
Well,
Your
I
lobbying is
say
to
that.
win. So that's just where I'm going to be. I don't know how the vote would have to go.
Yeah, how does that work? Will that change the amount?
I'll research it and find out.
Yeah, it says right here on the invoice, if an individual board member wishes to invoke, then you just adjust it.
All right.
Yeah, we'll revise that amount. If you want to approve that amount, then we'll revise.
Yeah, I mean, just
Yeah.
cut me out.
Approve that amount minus Ms. Beeson's part.
Sure.
So all in favor of approving this amount minus Ms. Houston's fees?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Got that. All right. Ms. Houston, board members, anything?
Boy, do I. So tonight, I want to say, really excited to see that Family Initiative was in the district. April is Autism Awareness Month. There's 1 in 44 people nowadays that are being diagnosed with this label, and that equates to approximately about 170 if we're on par with that statistic at this time. So I was very happy to see those who were in attendance and participating in that autism, that training that, well, I can certainly believe will pay big dividends in their classroom. I also wanted to give a shout out to our Clueston Elementary Schools. We have a local nonprofit did a Community Autism Awareness Day, and it was pretty awesome to see all 3 of the elementary schools there participating in it and making connections with the families. And I just wanted to commend them on that. So my second issue is, I'm sorry, my iPad died. It only likes to give me about an hour of service and then it's done for the night. But I wanted to talk about a policy that we have about controversial issues. And I've been sitting with this and thinking about this for a while. I know that, I don't know, Mr. Samradek probably didn't get it, but maybe a year or 2 years back, we got an anonymous email talking about what was being taught in our schools. And I don't think you were on the board then, but it was talking about a book that was being read, and it was an assigned reading in class. And the book, if I were to read that book out loud right now, I would definitely get put on the prayer list at Rev's Church. My mom would probably come up here and get a piece of me. I mean, I would be rightfully censured. And then when I went to go further, I was told that this issue was put, I don't know if you guys remember the email that I'm talking about, but it was controversial, ideological indoctrination going on in a classroom. And we were told by the then superintendent, I was told by the superintendent that was squashed and this wasn't happening anymore. And I got information to the contrary, and I went to verify, to verify what I was seeing. And, my issue, not only with what the content was in classrooms, I think it falls here under, very soundly under critical race theory that was being taught, anti-capitalism, which is communism or socialism, was being put in front of these young impressionable kids. And I've turned it over to the administration. I've given them their chance to investigate it, but I'm running out of patience for poor choices. We have some incredible educators, and then like in every field or every group, some who are not. We've had, complaints about what these kids are seeing. We had a teacher put a whole lesson in front of them, and I guarantee you this is not on the standards. I know this is not in Florida State standards. And we've had kids had lessons put in front of them in required classes, not elective classes, required classes where they're compelled by state law to be there, about they were mocking religions, which is absolutely inappropriate. I mean, it is borderline indoctrination. And I am wanting any parents out there One of the things that we heard in the letter was that people don't like to use the mechanisms in that policy to report these issues. And because it requires the kid to identify whenever this ideological or whatever issue comes up before them, that this is something we don't agree in and I want another assignment, whether it be religious, ideological, or whatever, but that isolates that kid from their peers. And I just don't think that we should put those kids in that position to have to do that when we are behind on reading and writing and arithmetic. There is no room for indoctrination with our kids. And they're compelled by law to be there. I hope that this district will take a strong stand on staff and any attempts to indoctrinate our kids. I believe, you can talk about controversial items, but for the most part that you need to stay away from that indoctrination. And I'll leave what I have here if you guys want to look at it and see if I'm getting a little carried away, but I think that, I'm spot on this one, and I don't want to see this continue to fester and take root in our schools. And if any parents are struggling with that, I don't know, please come to me. I'll go check it out. I won't make you identify yourself or your kid, but I do want to know about these incidences and make sure that our kids aren't sitting ducks for indoctrination. That's your name, yes, sir. No, ma'am. What's your name, right?
All right. Just one thing, I covered most of the things that I wanted to say earlier. We had our nice discussion about funding, but a year ago or so, I was sort of hot on Sodexo. I didn't feel that they were fulfilling what I thought should be the goals, but I can tell you now that I've been to every school. I haven't heard a teacher complain about the lunch in any capacity. They've all been very happy. Sodexo has been helping. I saw that they were helping with the Special Olympics. I know that they're helping in some of the schools with some of their funding programs, like the chili dinner at Central Elementary School. They're helping at the garden at LYDA. I really like that Sodexo has has moved up and has taken a very positive attitude about working with our teachers in our schools, so I wanted to say that. The other thing about that, though, is last year when we had to vote on the Sodexo contract, it was our first meeting in June. And when that came up, we had no time to even look at the contract because we had to send it to the state 3 days later or something like that. And I was wondering if it would be possible to see the Sodexo contract earlier and see if there's any things, or is that even negotiated?
If I may, yeah, so I've been in contact with Sodexo about the renewal, and the renewal that will come forward is pretty much what you saw last year. All of the negotiated terms and conditions within the contract were based on what was in the request for proposals, what they submitted, so we haven't necessarily changed that. The only thing that you're going to see change going forward, and I'm more than happy to sit with you and we can talk about if there's any concerns that you have, but what would come forward to the board is just the fixed meal rates changes just based on inflation. That is what would come forward for the renewal, because that's really the only piece in the contract that it was negotiable.
Well, I didn't know, I thought that, I didn't know whether USDA was increasing their contribution also. Mm-hmm. So I wanted to know how our balance would be after that. So yes, I would like to see that.
Okay.
That works for me.
What's the earliest that we can make it available for them to review?
I'll reach back out to Kevin. The inflation index that they used to adjust the meal rates was not out as of when I reached out to him, so I'll follow up with him and I'll reach out to you and we'll bring something to the board as soon as we can.
Great. I just didn't want to get the crowd behind where we had no room to discuss it.
Well, and if you want other options, we need plenty of time to make that happen as well. So we need to make sure we get it out there.
And so if there's anything outside of the fixed meal rates that you want to open up for discussion, we can start those discussions now because the renewal.
Sort of the a la carte was an issue for me last year.
I'm sorry?
The a la carte
Okay.
When it was $1 for an ice cream and we got 4 cents or something like that.
Yes, and we did adjust that rate last year. So if you would like to revisit that.
Yeah, I would like to.
Okay.
Thank you very much. That was it for me.
I would say.
Mr. President?
I just want to say that so far in these presentations, like the close to middle school tonight, Labelle Middle School, I'm just impressed with what these kids are doing with this programming and the stuff, the 3D printers, it's just amazing. You know, it's just incredible, and I think that is so awesome that we're finding grant money to do that and teach these kids. It's just amazing. So I hope we continue to encourage them to do that. You know, that just blows my mind that they can print that thing. It's incredible.
I think we need a field trip.
And so I already told him I wanted to come play with his toys.
Yeah, right.
It's incredible. That was it. Thank you.
I've been here a good while, and I'm accustomed to a lot of time board members will either choose some part of the school system out, and then whenever that thing is fixed or rectified, they never come back and say, okay, they got it fixed for it. But when some of that came back tonight and said he appreciated it, was excellent done, and I appreciate him coming back and letting us know that it was corrected. If I can have the same information sent in, I appreciate that. My next question is, we're not having school work, but if anybody know how Matt Beatty is doing, could you still let me know after service? Matt service or after the meeting? Yeah, I would appreciate that.
I can try to make this a service if you'd like.
We're praying for him, so.
I don't have anything tonight. Mr. Superintendent, anything else?
So I would like to say, number one, thank you very much for the support on the items that you gave us tonight. I know that these items are somewhat monumental because these are things that this school board and the school system has never done to these magnitudes. I stand steady with the fact that we're a growing school district and the things that we're going to have to do over the next several months to accommodate that growth and to maintain a viable school system is going to be monumental again. And so I warned you a couple of meetings ago that wear your comfortable pants and shoes because we're going to be here a while. The next couple of meetings are going to be that way as well when we start talking about the school. And then when we come back with specifics about some of these taxing issues that we have talked about tonight. And so it's not going to get shorter or easier. It's going to continue to compound from here out. My job is I want you to feel comfortable with the information that we have. If I'm not doing that, please let me know. If you want to meet with me individually, I will make myself available so that you have all the time you want to overlook the information and have detailed questions answered as always. Other than that, great comments, about the schools. I would like to reiterate the fact that a lot of times it's easy to look across the data and beat ourselves up or beat schools up or teachers up or whatever, but at the end of the day, we have some of the best schools, finest teachers, and finest programs that I would put up against anyone. We have a lot of issues. There's a lot of things we don't have and that we need, but overall, we have some fine education happening in Hendry County schools, and it's getting better every single day. So thank you for the comment and recognizing that. Yep.
I got out of your first comment, Amanda, bring chocolate to the next meeting.
That's right, if you want to stay with it.
Attorney Shattuck, anything?
Thank you, Chair, members of the board. Nothing tonight.